We've got some more readings from the book Jazz Anecdotes by Bill Crow, and it's got a lovely picture on the front of little Jazz telling Lester Young a story or other, and Lester Young's absolutely cracked up with it, and he thinks it's so funny, and it's a lovely picture. Anyway, this part of the book is called Stage Fright. Stage fright is considered a normal hazard among actors, but musicians are often unprepared for it, finding themselves before an audience in an unusual situation. They may suddenly be surprised to discover that their mouths are dry, their palms sweaty, their minds blank. Garvin Bushell saw this happen to Bubba Miley. After recording with the blues singer Mamie Smith in 1921, Bushell went on a tour with her show. Somewhere along the way, Bubba Miley was hired to replace trumpeter Johnny Dunn. Bubba had never done a show before and was nervous about being on stage. He later went on to spend years with Duke Ellington, but this is obviously before then. On opening day at the Pershing Theatre in Pittsburgh, Mamie got her hooks and eyes of her costume caught in the drawer of her dressing room and was late coming on stage. The band kept vamping, but Mamie didn't appear. Mamie's husband said, "Play the introduction again." The band complied, but still no Mamie. They had already played the Royal Garden Blues, but they played it again. They repeated Mamie's introduction, still no Mamie. "Play it again," shouted Mamie's husband. By this time, Miley's lip was beginning to give out. Bushell said, "I looked over there at Bubba, and he was so nervous he had his trumpet down on his chin trying to blow it, and he's backing off the stage at the same time as trying to find his mouth, scared to death." Mamie's husband, out in the wings, took his foot and booted Bubba back on stage, and the audience yelled. They had to bring the curtain down. Barnaby Gard tells of a time when stage fright struck the Ellington band. We were booked into the Palace Theatre in New York. If you played there and went over big, then you had it made. It was like a testing ground for acts of all kinds. We were all set to open, and we had our new white ties and tails, but most of the guys were real nervous because this was such a biggie. There was just 2 shows a day, and if the public liked what you did, you got those first edition notices, then you would be at work for 52 weeks of a year automatically. This all being at stake, we were shivering with apprehension in the dressing room. We knew all the critics and the Broadway bigwigs were out there. We took the stand behind the curtain. Then they pulled the curtain, and we like froze. Out came Duke and took his bow. He turned to us and waved the button to get us to hit the big chord that would start our show. Down came the button. Nothing. Nobody moved or blew a note. Duke's eyes were blazing at us all, but he turned and smiled sweetly to the audience, just as if he were conducting a tea dance. He turned back to us, still smiling, and said in a loud voice, "Play, you bastards." We got through the first week somehow. I'll never know how, but we got good press, and we were on our way. On another occasion, Bigard said, "At the time, Black and Tan was one of the big numbers. While we rehearsed, I was fooling with a horn, and I made a glissando, and Duke said at once, 'Keep that in, that's what I want.' That's how things happened in that band. The funny part of it was that we opened in the Palace Theatre in New York, and that was the big number, and Tricky Sam and I, we had solos in this. So when I get up there, this is my first stage appearance, and I'm all trembling, and I get to make that slur, well, all I can say is beep, 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 and the people started laughing. Then I went into the blues and it was all right. Well, I turned green, you know. I was thinking really did a good bit of messing up. Then Tricky Sam started his solo with the plunger, and he had it in so tight, the inner mute, that he blew the back out of the horn, the tuning slide. The people started laughing again. They thought it was in the act. Lucky Thompson was overwhelmed when he first arrived in New York in 1943 with the Lionel Hampton Band. He was hired to replace Ben Webster at the Three Juices, and on the first night looked down from the bandstand to see Coleman Hawkins, Don Byas, Lester Young, Ben Webster sitting there listening. I had never played so horrible in my life, says Lucky. I don't know how I survived, believe me. For the first time, I found my fingers in between the keys. Roy Eldridge was such an ebullient, competitive player that nervousness seemed out of the question, but he said he'd always felt nervous before playing. He thought the reason dated back to his childhood. I joined the drum and bugle corps. That I really enjoyed. I couldn't wait till the parade on Decoration Day. I'd get up about 6 o'clock in the morning and go out and get my snare drum and tune it up. When you get home at night, those drums are still beating in your ears. It was such a good feeling, marching in front of all those people. They got shorter buglers, and they just handed me a bugle. That was before I started playing trumpet. I could play it except for one thing, something that hasn't left me in all these years, being nervous when I had to play. See what they did, they stationed each bugler a certain distance in the graveyard. Roy described how one bugler would begin taps and each bugler in turn would play the next phrase. It had nothing to do with it being in a graveyard. It was just that all my buddies were there from my side of town. We lived on the north side. If I'd been the second one, I don't think I'd have been nervous, but like, they went there, and they went there, and they went there, and they looked like I was the last one. When it got to me, I was in a cold sweat, and I went, "Oop-ee-oh." Talk about sounding like a nanny goat. There's something that struck with me ever since, you know. Like many young musicians, Roy felt intimidated when he first came to New York. New York musicians, cats that had been here, had a certain attitude, you know. I got in this band. First of all, I'd never played in a band with a good string bass and a good drummer and that kind of time with a sock cymbal, you know, and it was different. Plus these cats were playing so great I was scared to death. Every time I had a chorus coming up, the first trumpet player, Leon Davis, he would take my part. When I did get something, I was so beaten down, I just couldn't play nothing. When intermission came, my brother and Chewberry got me and took me to the bar across the street from the Renaissance and brought me about 3 shorties of gin or corn or whatever it was and said, "If you don't play, we're going to kick the shit out of you. Forget this cat, stomp on him." In those days, if you would take a chorus, near the end of your chorus, I would stomp, and that means I'm coming in. So open the door, right? So by the time we got back on, man, I was feeling no pain. So Davis got up and took my chorus from me, and I stomped on him. I played, and I haven't looked back since. Got my own experiences of this sort of thing. I'd been doing a lot of jam sessions over in Newcastle, and I was quite happy with that really. And I got this opportunity to play first tenor with this big band that a fellow was starting up. And when I got there, I mean, there was only a few of us there because he used to buy in people. But anyway, I got there and this alto sax player was there and she was good. And we got to the first chorus that first time it says improvise for tenor, for first tenor, and the first tenor has all the improvisations. There's nobody else in the big band gets anything. They're all first tenor. So this first alto jumped up because she was used to playing all these solos because there wasn't a first tenor there. And I remembered that passage and I thought, no, I'm going to do this. And I got up and I played the solo. And I played all the solos. And later on she asked me, can I have a go because you're getting it all and I'm getting no practice? And I was horrible and I said no. Because I didn't want anybody taking anything from me at all. I was so nervous about being stomped on. Anyway, that was me. But later on we were playing in this for dancing, and this band leader had hired in 2 really good alto players, and he started giving them what I thought were my solos, and I got so depressed that I just couldn't handle it at all. And they were playing nice, and I can play a solo as well as anybody. But I was so depressed by him giving away what I thought was mine that I gave away the rest of it and I didn't hardly play. So that was really bad again. But there we go.